Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pit Pod. I am your host G, and this is the second episode of the show. I wanted to start off by thanking everybody that listened to the last episode and gave me comments on the Steeler Nation UK Facebook page, as well as liking it on YouTube and also visiting the YouTube page on the Steeler Nation UK website, and also to Gordon for broadcasting the podcast on the Steeler Nation UK website as well. I also wanted to say that if there's something in life that you guys wanted to pursue something in life, just go ahead and do it. Follow your dreams, because this has been a dream of mine for so long, and I've wanted to do it for so long, and I put it off, and I put it off, and I put it off, and I'm finally doing it. So guys, I just want to say thank you guys to everyone that's listened, and also if there's something you're pursuing in life, go ahead and do it. It could be the exact same thing as me with the podcast. It could be something else that you've always wanted to do. Just go ahead and make it happen, because the only person stopping you in this world is yourself. But with the motivational side of things out of the way, I just thought I'd get it in there quickly. Let's discuss the loss, because the Pittsburgh Steelers lost to the Denver Broncos in epic fashion with multiple turnovers and what turned out to be a pretty horrendous game for Steeler Nation. We continued to make things difficult for ourselves, even though it didn't have to be at times, and we were really the victim of our own success throughout the game. But I'm going to really break it down completely. I just wanted to say that I thought the guys really did perform really well, but at the same time, a lot of turnovers that were kind of the whole team's fault rather than just somebody in particular led to our loss. And I think that if we had just continued to play the way we can, we would have won the game. But turnovers are absolutely huge in this game, and if you lose a turnover battle, you're probably going to lose the game. Losing in a one-score game is never easy. 24-17 for the Denver Broncos. It was a really bad game for us in terms of the turnover aspect, but there are a lot of positives to take from it. But let's just start with the problems. First of all, we had Stephon Tuitt missing once again in this game. Now, obviously, he can't help being injured, but we don't have somebody at the minute that can really step up into his shoes as a nose tackle and make some big plays. I think Stephon Tuitt, although a defensive end, does a lot of duties that many defensive ends don't actually have to. I think he is a very dominant force at the line of scrimmage, and with him missing, it's always going to be difficult, and our defensive tackles can't do the same amount of work without that pressure on the edge to give them some help. So that's obviously a difficulty, and I said in the first episode that the biggest and most important thing we need to do in order to win this game is to stop the Tasmanian Devil, Philip Lindsay, and that is of course what we didn't do. Lindsay produced 110 yards on 14 rushes in the game, and that is the first time that a running back has amassed 100 plus yards in a total of 14 games, which dates back to last season. So they did really well on that front, and they did really well to run the ball down our throats. So we knew it was something that had to be stopped coming into the game. It's just something we didn't stop hard enough. We didn't play well enough. I think TJ Watt also with his hand, he was struggling a little bit after that injury. So there was a lot of problems there. In addition, in regard to our run game, James Conner had one less carry than Philip Lindsay for 53 yards, but the run game just felt totally abandoned throughout the game. We had 56 passing attempts for Big Ben, and I know that Big Ben is an elite passer. He's absolutely incredible at what he does, but we need to run the ball. We cannot turn ourselves into the situation that's with Green Bay at the moment, where they've got this quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, who's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and they just don't want to run the ball because they know how good Aaron Rodgers is. It doesn't work. If you continue to pass the ball all game long and don't utilize the run game, you will never win the game. It's just the way it is. You need to have that dual threat to be able to give some more time in the pocket, because they're anticipating a run when it's a throwing play. Regardless, in terms of the quarterback debate, Big Ben had 41 passes completed of 56 for 462 yards and 1 touchdown. Now that is really good yardage, and it's probably got him a great passer rating too, minus the 2 interceptions. But it didn't win us the game at the end of the day, but it also wasn't all his fault at the same time as that. Case Keenum for the Denver Broncos had 15 of 28 completed for 197 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now you see here, that's the big difference. Although Big Ben Roethlisberger had 200 plus more yards than Case Keenum did, the run game for the Denver Broncos was just as important, if not more important, than Case Keenum was, because it provided the dual threat, and also with the missed tackles in our behalf, they were able to utilize both a dual threat in terms of passing and running, and that wins games. You win the turnover battle, you get some good rushes, some good passes, you will win the game 110%. 110% every single time. More problems come in turnovers, as I've said probably multiple times, hundreds of times throughout this episode. Big Ben with 2, including one which could have tied the game up in the end zone, and the Pittsburgh Steelers UK account, he actually said on Twitter before it happened, I guarantee you Big Ben either fumbles this ball or gets intercepted. And that's exactly what happened. Under pressure, he threw the ball into the middle of the end zone, and it really it got picked off. It was a pass to nobody really. He didn't see one of the players coming in. I can't remember who it was that intercepted the ball, but he didn't see him coming in, and it was just picked off. Then you have the James Conner fumble, which has sparked another debate in Yintsburg, where everybody's saying that Le'Veon Bell wouldn't have done that, Le'Veon Bell wouldn't have done this, Le'Veon Bell is better than James Conner once again. There's a lot of turncoat fans, in my opinion. We've got to stick with James Conner. I think he's a little bit low on confidence. He's not getting utilised in the run game enough. We need to continue to give him the ball, continue to let him rush with the ball, and just see what happens. I know that he just appears a little bit short on confidence for this time being, but I think we need to continue feeding him the ball and making him our outlet man and our workman in the team, because he really can do that role when he's utilised to the best of his ability, and I think he is absolutely a fantastic player. Xavier Grimble as well. I don't know where to start with that fumble. A huge hit. I think he actually got knocked out in the play. It looked a bit like head-to-head collision, but I think it was Gene Steratore. He came in and said that it wasn't, but to me it looked like that, and I think he was knocked out in the play. Regardless, the ball comes loose, it fumbles out into their end zone, they get a touchback. That is a horrendous way to go for the 7 points. Missed on that one. And then in special teams, you've got our first kick of the game. Chris Boswell was blocked by Sullivan, the safety for Denver Broncos. He's done that previously before, and it's kind of a bad look for our special teams coach with it already happening in the past. So we need to continue making sure we're getting everything on film and making sure that we continue to look after the other team and see what they're actually really good at, especially with the special teams, because we can't be affording to lose, miss field goals and leave points on the board, because when we do that, we lose. The 10 points would have won us the game, as well as Big Ben's interception in the end zone. So there's a lot of negatives from that game. Despite that, we do have some positives. Chris Boswell, I just said he had some bad parts, but I guess the block wasn't actually all his doing. He had one field goal, but more importantly, he had one touchdown pass to Big Al Villanueva. That was an absolutely fantastic trick play. I got a lot of flack from a few people discussing whether that was a good idea or not. I will say that going for it in a special teams play is always a stupid decision, but when it comes off, it's absolutely brilliant. And I think it was an absolutely fantastic call on special teams, because nobody knew it was coming. They were completely unprepared for it, and we managed to score on the touchdown, so that was absolutely fantastic. Well done, Al Villanueva, and well done to Chris Boswell. Jordan Berry, once again, he had two great punts inside the 20, which averaged 44.3 yards for a total of 113 yards. One punt didn't make it into the inside the 20, but he's getting better each and every week. I think it was maybe a confidence battle. I don't know what that was, but as I commented on him last week, he is also getting better this week too. Juju Smith-Schuster, 97-yard touchdown run. He had a total of 189 yards on 13 receptions and one touchdown, and averaged 14.5 yards per reception, which is absolutely fantastic. Juju has been absolutely amazing all season for us, and it's probably been our best wideout all season. Ryan Switzer had probably his best game in a Steeler uniform, despite fumbling the ball when he had the kick return, but he had 67 yards on 6 carries, so he looked like a reliable outlet man for us again, and he looks like a great pickup from Oakland. Oakland, of course, with John Gruden throwing out Khalil Mack. You know, he seems to be just wanting to get rid of all the great players, but we'll happily snap him up. On defence, there wasn't all that much to shout about other than Terrell Edmonds, who had 8 tackles. He actually looked really good in the game. And then we have Vince Williams picking up a sack as well. Apart from that, that's really all our positives for this week, but I want to say a final word on the game. We really just have to file this one as a one-off. I know we played against the Jacksonville Jaguars the week before and we looked even worse then. But at the end of the day, if we file this under as never going to happen again, we've got huge fixtures coming up against the Los Angeles Chargers, the New England Patriots, and the New Orleans Saints, which are 3 games that are going to be very, very tough to win, at least even get a draw out of it. So we need to make sure that this is filed under as a one-off and it will never happen again. And I'm sure in training, Mike Tomlin and co will be making sure that this goes away as quick as possible. But with the loss, we regress to a record of 7-3-1. But we're still first in the AFC North, and I don't see anyone challenging us for that divisional title. And I think once it gets into the playoffs, who knows what can happen. Speaking of the Chargers, that's who we have next week. Here are the keys for the game. Home field advantage, as always, is absolutely vital in any game. But with the Chargers entering Pittsburgh at 8-3, they have Phillip Rivers at the helm, and they're going to be very, very difficult to stop. He's coming off a game of 259 yards and 3 touchdowns, within which he completed 28 of 29 passes, and he actually accumulated the most ever attempts completed without any drops or interceptions, which was 25, I believe. So that's another record for Phillip Rivers. Is he going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, or is he even going to be a second ballot Hall of Famer? I don't personally think so, because you're going to have to start letting everybody in unless he wins the Super Bowl with the Chargers this season, of course, that is. But with Phillip Rivers, he's a very reliable quarterback, and the problem with the Los Angeles Chargers this year is that they only have 11 turnovers, which is the 4th lowest in the league. So getting turnovers is going to be ridiculously hard. They're going to come at a premium, and it's going to be a very tough game for us. But there are some ways we can win. Now, first of all, that could be in the form of the running back position. With Melvin Gordon's MCL injury, which is to his knee, Austin Eckler garners to start at running back. He is also a useful outlet. He is probably a stretch, but he does have that elusive speed that Melvin Gordon has. He's got good accuracy with the hands. He knows how to run the offense well with Phillip Rivers. He's been there before. He's had to fill in multiple times before. But we need to stop him at the line of scrimmage. His elusive speed is something that he will take us for granted for, and with missed tackling in the last game, that has to be shored up because he will take advantage of us. Again, Rivers comes up in the keys to victory once more. We need to force him into throws. Constant pressure at the line of scrimmage. Continue to put pressure on him. Make sure he has to throw in the open field, perhaps throw against his body. Make him feel under pressure and make him feel that he has to make a throw in order to win the game, and that is exactly when we pounce. Defensively, the Chargers secondary is immensely talented. Let's just get that straight out of the way. Firstly, they've got the second coming of Sean Taylor, in my opinion, with Derwin James. I actually met Derwin James for the London games. He was really, really cool. I told him that I love his cousin, who is Vince Williams. A little discussion, he signed a cap for me. So he's a really nice guy, but I also think he is probably going to be the Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's insanely talented. He loves a big hit now and then, and he just looks like an absolute freak athlete. They also have got exceptional cover corners in Casey Hayward, Desmond King, and then the safety Adrian Phillips. They're all ball hawks. They're all really good in coverage. They can do man-to-man. They can do zone. And they possess great speed as well, which is another big problem for us. Antonio Brown, obviously the best wide receiver in the league, but he will face difficulty against Casey Hayward in this game, who's an experienced corner. Furthermore, on the defensive end front, I think they've got the best duo in the league with Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram. Those two are absolute sack monsters. They will come at every cost to get us at quarterback position. I think that if the offensive line continues to play the way they've been playing, I think there's going to be absolutely zero problem. However, with these guys, you just never know. They've got such great strength. They know how to get in behind the line of scrimmage no matter what it is that you're going to be able to put up. And I know that they watch a lot of film, and they'll be watching loads and loads of film. Because for them, this matchup could be absolutely monumental in their race to the playoffs. Now, what can we do? We've discovered everything that the Chargers will do to us, but what can we do? Simply, we need to not shoot ourselves in the foot. Turnovers are being provided far too easy from us. Big Ben, as I've said in previous episodes, I love this about him, but he will not play cautiously. If he loses 5 turnovers, he loses 5 turnovers, but he will not change his game in order to win. He just feels that his way is the best way to do it, and I respect that. However, if we are to win, that has to change to some regard. With 4 turnovers in the last game as well, it's going to be in the back of our minds. So we need to play smart football. We need to play the smart pass, as well as continue to make sure that we use the running game. James Conner is a fantastic piece. Give him the ball. Continue to give him the ball. He's had 2 fumbles this season already. I am not worried about that in the slightest. We need to just continue to feed him the ball. Give him confidence. Give him something to believe in. Tell him we believe in him to begin with. I know Big Ben respects him greatly, so let's continue to use James Conner. James Conner, we're going to win and lose this game on James Conner's shoulders. I really, really do believe that. So that is why he needs to be the biggest piece in our game plan this weekend. Now, with all the Steelers stuff out of the way, it's time to round up the NFL so far in week 12. As some of you may know, I'm the NFC North cover writer for 99 Yards, and I follow the North just as much as I probably do the Steelers and the AFC North, because at the end of the day it's my job. So we're going to start with the Bears versus the Lions. Now the Bears run out 23-16 winners, and that probably is going to end the Detroit Lions' playoff hopes. The Bears, for me, are an absolute lock-on for the divisional title at 8-3, and the Lions now fall to 4-7. They have absolutely zero way to come back. Matthew Stafford looks obsolete in the starting quarterback role for me. Is it time to move on for the Lions? I'm not 100% sure, but that offensive line is really not putting up any blocks whatsoever either. As for the other game in the NFC North, we had two divisional rivalries this week, obviously. The Vikings won 24-17 over the Packers, another one-score game. The Vikings picking up a huge win, and it also sinks the Packers. I do think that now the way they're playing is really, really bad. And if you see in Aaron Rodgers' post-game press conference, he's listing off the teams they'll have to beat. And it doesn't look good. He doesn't even look very confident in it. And I think it's only a matter of time before head coach Mike McCarthy gets the done. Now, for the AFC North competitors, we have the Ravens winning 34-17 against the lowly Oakland Raiders. The Raiders are a horrendous team this year. As mentioned earlier, John Gruden is on a tirade to end the Raiders. However, in the game, Lamar Jackson didn't look too bad in terms of rushing the ball. Again, he had 7 rushes for 71 yards and a touchdown. In passing, you wouldn't think it was too bad either. 14-25 for 178 yards and 1 touchdown, but he was intercepted twice in the game. He threw into triple coverage, in fact it was at one point. When I was condensing my thoughts for the podcast, I was thinking about whether Lamar Jackson is a quarterback you would want in your team or you wouldn't. I don't think that his form of running the ball every single time he can is a really good method to win games, because he can get injured very easily. On the other hand, you've got the idea that quarterbacks are gaining so much penalties this year with the late hit penalties and everything like that. So it is maybe a good fit for them. If he can continue with the accuracy in the pass game, he could really be a dangerous threat to the AFC North, should I say. In the other game, the AFC North, we have the Browns absolutely thrashing the Cincinnati Bengals 35-20. Baker Mayfield was absolutely amazing with 19 of 26 passes for 258 yards and 4 touchdowns. I think he's going to be the unanimous AFC Player of the Week as well as the Rookie of the Week. It also does the Steelers a massive favour. It puts the Bengals out of contention. The Bengals are probably below the worst teams in the league. Dalton's out injured. Dalton looked really bad in that game too. And now it's time for best of the rest. So you've got the Redskins losing 23-31 to the Cowboys. Both teams now lay at 6-5, with the Cowboys probably going to take over in the NFC East. They look like the most complete team out of that division. They're probably not going to go anywhere in the playoffs, but I do think they'll get there regardless. The Saints once again continue their fine form, 31-17 over the Falcons. Just another dominating performance. Matt Ryan looked pretty bad in that game too. Drew Brees, of course, absolutely fantastic. The Eagles 25-22 over the Giants, another big NFC East battle. Eagles, once again, they also looked pretty poor too, but the Giants looked even worse. Eli Manning did it not too bad, but Carson Wentz, obviously just a better quarterback there. And even with the Eagles being down to their 6th and 7th cornerbacks, they still won the game, surprisingly. And I think they were down 19-7 at one point as well. The Bills picked up a big win over the Jaguars, 24-21, in a game that was fueled by fights. Leonard Fournette was ejected from the game and he'll miss another game. They were fighting down the tunnel. Leonard Fournette was throwing hands. I've never got why you would throw a hand at another helmet. You're just going to break your hand, but we'll leave that to another day. Leonard Fournette looked like a massive idiot out there on the field. The Tennessee Titans lost 17-34 to the Texans on Monday Night Football, which was a really good game in actuality. The Panthers 27-30 against the Seahawks. The Seahawks get another big win. They're 2 in a row now, and they're really building some momentum for a playoff push. The Panthers, ever since getting absolutely blown out in Pittsburgh on Thursday Night Football, I think 3 weeks ago, they've continued to lose and lose and lose. The Bucks in the Super Bad Bowl, as I like to call it, 27-9. Not much to speak about there. Jameis Winston's trying to resurrect his career in Florida. If he continues to play well in the remaining games, I think he will continue to keep that starter spot, whether that be a stupid decision or not by the Bucks management. The Jets 13-27 to the Patriots. They were never going to win. They contended for quite a bit, but in the end they lost the game. The Chargers, of course, who we play next week, 45-10 over the Cardinals. Phillip Rivers was majestic in that game. I don't know what else to say. He was absolutely brilliant. Honestly, he really was. You should watch it if you haven't already. And the Colts won 27-24. The Indianapolis Colts are on a huge rise. Andrew Luck at the helm is absolutely fantastic. Ryan Tannehill came back from injury for the Miami Dolphins, and he looked good once again. A lot of Dolphins fans saying he isn't the problem, but he is not the answer to the problem either. I guess that's probably fair. I don't think Ryan Tannehill gets a fair shot of it, but at the same time, he's also injured a lot of the time. So it's difficult to look at it in both sides, and I feel for Dolphin fans, I really do. Power rankings time. The Saints at 10-1 are, of course, number one. They're the most complete team in the league. I don't know how many times I have to say it. Drew Brees is phenomenal. That defense is great too. The Rams coming at number 2 for me, 10-1 also. Todd Gurley, best running back in the league, hands down, no doubt about it. Jared Goff's playing really good football too under Sean McVay's system. He's not a system quarterback in my opinion. It's just that the system is working well for Jared Goff. Aaron Donald, defensive MVP, no doubt about it. And he's also got Ndamukong Suh, who looks absolutely fantastic too. Number 3 are the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes and Kareem Hunt. As always, they will be dangerous. Number 4 is the New England Patriots. Tom Brady, never count them out. They've also come back with another big win over the New York Jets. They're definitely going to make it into playoffs. We will see what happens when they get there, but never count out the New England Patriots. Number 5 and moving up in the rankings for me are the Chicago Bears. Now, with Mitchell Trubisky out, they had Chase Daniels in at quarterback, and Daniels did a great job. He really did play well. He just did all the right things, and they don't even look too bad without him. I don't think that Mitchell Trubisky is an elite quarterback, but I think he gets the job done with an excellent defense. And Eddie Jackson is one of those guys that you really want to highlight with 5 turnovers already in just 2 years. I think it's 5 turnovers with a touchdown that he's converted into a touchdown, so that's brilliant from Eddie Jackson. Number 6 are the Los Angeles Chargers. As I've said previously, Rivers is absolutely undeniable. The defense is amazing as well. Number 7, the Houston Texans. With a big win on Monday Night Football, they moved to 8-3. They've got a dominant defense with J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney. Number 8 are the Pittsburgh Steelers. We've looked pretty abysmal in the past 2 weeks. That's why we fall to number 8 in my opinion. But we can get back to where we were before, and the saying goes, an animal is most dangerous when it's wounded. I think that's exactly what we are at this minute in time. Number 9 are the Indianapolis Colts. As aforementioned, Andrew Luck is unstoppable, and when he's protected with a great O-line that the Indianapolis Colts have got, he can be absolutely fantastic. Marlon Mack is also a great running back for them too, and they've got a solid defense as well. Number 10 are the Dallas Cowboys. Zeke Elliott is a dynamic talent. Dak Prescott as well can be dangerous when he's used like Alex Smith is, with the short dump-off passes, play-action passes as well. Mix things up in the play calling. And defensively, they're solid. Leighton Van Der Esch could be a Rookie of the Year candidate as well if he continues his fine form. So folks, that's all for the NFL this week. It's time to turn our attention to the Pittsburgh Panthers, who had to travel to Miami to face Miami U. Of course, Miami Hurricanes, the great Ray Lewis and Ed Reed came from there. Michael Irvin. We were defeated 24-3 and looked really not great. Cody Pickett, I think, only had just over 100 yards, so that wasn't great in terms of quarterbacking. DJ Dallas run amok over us with a huge punt return touchdown to make it 10-0. He also scored another rushing touchdown, which was his 6th of the season. Travis Homer had 168 rushing yards and a touchdown of his own, including a 65-yard touchdown run, which showed millions of missed tackles, which is really, really bad. We had a horrendous offensive line performance with 6 sacks and 14 tackles for a loss for the Miami Hurricanes on there as well. But we finished the season at 6-2 in the conference with an overall record of 7-5, which is enough to qualify us for the conference championship game against the Clemson Tigers. Speaking of which, they are 12-0 in the season. They're an absolute force to be reckoned with. The number 2 in the country in terms of ranked teams. I think that's behind Alabama. The Tigers quarterback is Trevor Lawrence, who is coming off a 393-yard and 1 touchdown game, and he'll always be aided by their star running back Travis Etienne, who's been fantastic, including he was great in their last game too. I don't see the Pitt Panthers winning this game. I couldn't fathom the way they would. I don't think they've got good enough pieces to be able to defeat the Clemson Tigers, who obviously have been absolutely amazing this season so far. At 12-0, they look unstoppable, and I think they will win the bowl game too once they advance. But with the Panthers covered, that leads me to my favourite aspect of the pod. It's a new segment, and it's the series I talked about in the last episode that I was going to be covering, and it's the career retrospective series. And the first I'd like to start with is a Pitt Panther legend who's also made it huge strides in the NFL. His name, Larry Fitzgerald. The whole point of this series is to document the player before he became the player. And we all know the story of the third overall draft pick of the 2004 draft. He was arguably the best football player to come out of collegiate football in a long, long time. And the man who became an 11-time Pro Bowler, is 7th all-time in receiving touchdowns, 3rd in all-time receptions, and 2nd in all-time receiving yards. But not many know about the Pitt Panther that is and was and forever will be Larry Fitzgerald, a guy who absolutely transformed football at Pittsburgh for our team, and he also, more importantly, is an absolute trailblazer and one of the best wide receivers to ever play the game. Fitzgerald only played 2 years at the University of Pittsburgh because he was held back for 1 year due to struggling with grades in school. So he was sent off to Valley Forge Military Academy by his parents, and that obviously held him back a year in high school. He hated the decision to begin with, he hated his parents for it as well, but he now credits that time for really straightening him out on the path and getting him to the NFL. And I remember in his Football Life documentary, he used to sleep with the NFL logo above his head. So every time he closed his eyes, he knew that, and when he opened them, he knew that was exactly where he wanted to be. So that's another great story from Larry. So in this 2002 season, which was his first year at the university, he was an instant sensation. In week 2 against the Texas A&M football team, he had 10 receptions for 103 yards. In week 5 against Toledo, he had 6 receptions for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns, which would be his first touchdowns in the league. He would then face the Virginia Tech Hokies. With 5 receptions, he would amass 105 yards and 3 touchdowns. In the last regular season, he had a game against Western Virginia University, and he had 11 receptions for 159 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the 26th of December 2002, in the 2002 Insight Bowl, he had 5 receptions for 88 yards in the opening touchdown, with the Pittsburgh Panthers winning 38-13. In that year, Fitzgerald led the Big East in receptions with 69 receptions for 1,005 yards and 12 touchdowns, whilst averaging 14.6 yards per reception. The 12 touchdowns also led the Big East. By the time 2003 rolled around, he was an absolute phenomenal athlete. It was his best year at the university, and he was one of the most dominant players in the league. In week 1, for example, against Kent State, he had 6 receptions for 123 yards and his first 3 touchdowns of the season. The next week, against Ball State, he had 7 receptions for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. In the third week, against Toledo once more, he had 12 receptions for 201 yards and 1 touchdown. In week 4 against Texas A&M, he had 7 receptions for 135 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then in week 5 against Rutgers, he had 8 receptions for 207 yards and 2 touchdowns. In Game 7 against Syracuse, he had 8 receptions for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns. Furthermore, in the next 4 games, Fitzgerald amassed more than 100 yards in each game, whilst he racked up an additional 6 touchdowns. To end the season, on the other hand, he was limited to just 26 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. Regardless, the Panthers' 8-4 win-loss record qualified them for the 2003 Continental Tire Bowl against the Virginia Cavaliers. They did lose, however, 16-23, but Larry had 77 yards on 5 receptions and was held to a touchdownless game for the first time in 18 games of his career. For that year, he led the league in Big East receptions with 92. He also had the NCAA receiving yards tally for 1,672 yards. He also led the league in receiving touchdowns, with 22. He was a unanimous 2003 All-American, first team All-Big East. He finished second behind James White in the Heisman Trophy voting. He also won the Walter Camp Award, which is awarded to the best player in the NCAA, and the Blitkoff Award, which is for the best wideout in the league. In just 2 seasons at the University of Pittsburgh, he totaled 26 games as he caught 161 passes for 2,677 yards and 34 touchdowns. This leaves a lasting legacy, with his 161 receptions ranking 5th all-time in Pitt history, whilst his 92 single-season receptions still ranks as number 1 ever. His receiving yards, furthermore, has 2,677, which is 6th all-time, and once again, his single season with 1,672 yards is still a Pittsburgh record. In terms of receiving touchdowns, Larry Fitzgerald's total receiving touchdowns of 34 ranks 1st all-time, as does his single-season record of 22. On the 1st of July 2013, Fitzgerald was rightly inducted into the Pittsburgh Hall of Fame and had his number 1 jersey retired, making him the 9th Pitt Panther to receive the accolade. My favourite quote of all time regarding Larry Fitzgerald, out with the statistics and everything to do with it, is from Rod Rutherford, who was the quarterback at the time that Larry Fitzgerald attended the University of Pittsburgh. Rod is quoted as saying, "You knew what we were doing, where we were going, and you just couldn't stop us. Once we got on the 10-yard line, we were going to throw a jump ball fade to Larry for a touchdown." And that to me is the most fantastic quote ever about a wide receiver, because it just shows the brutality of how good he was. Because every single time that they got into the end zone, or they got even near to a possession where it was maybe 4th down or 3rd and long, you knew every time the ball was coming to Larry Fitzgerald, and 9 times out of 10 the corners just couldn't compete with him. And that still stands today with the Arizona Cardinals. I would also like to say that Larry Fitzgerald is also someone I relate to on a personal note, because he loves travelling. You can see in his NFL football life as well that he does a lot of travelling to exotic countries that a lot of people don't think are hospitable, or maybe it's not a great idea to go to, for example, Egypt or some countries in Africa, and he loves to expand his horizons. So I really do love that about him. Larry Fitzgerald also does a lot of great things in his community, as well as a lot of great things for the military and charitable foundations. As well as that, he's quoted as being one of the greatest teammates of all time. Additionally, a lot of the coaches have said that he wants to know everything about everyone. He wants to know a little bit about everybody so he can talk to you, so that he's always learning, he's always wanting to be a knowledgeable person, and he always wants to involve himself with the team, and I really do love that about Larry. Am I sad that we ended his Super Bowl hopes? No, because we won the Super Bowl. However, I would love to see Larry Fitzgerald win that Super Bowl, because it's the least he deserves. He's been a student of the game for over a decade, and he's just one of the greatest players of all time. He's not a controversial player. He's got a lot of respect for everybody, and he just goes out and gets the job done. My final thought and favourite thing about Larry Fitzgerald is the celebrations. He has been told from a young age to make sure that when he gets a touchdown, to make it look like he's been there before, and I absolutely love that. It's similar to Barry Sanders, and I love the fact that he doesn't really celebrate, and if he ever does, it's with his teammates, because that's what he is built on. He's built on the foundations of teammates, and I hope that he gets his jersey retired for the Arizona Cardinals as well, and gets a bust in Canton, Ohio for the Hall of Fame. I would also like to credit Wikipedia, A Football Life, and Sports Reference for providing the research to make this possible, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed this series, and I would love to do some more. It doesn't just have to be Pittsburgh Panthers. I will also be on Pittsburgh Steelers, and I might even include a couple of the Pittsburgh Penguins as well if I get the time. I'm also going to be doing a little bit of a series on the London Monarchs to come. That'll come around Christmas, so I'm really looking forward and really excited for that. Now it's time to turn our attention to hockey, however. The first game being played since the recording of the first podcast being between the Dallas Stars and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now it was a thrilling performance from the Penguins, who won 5-1 with Sidney Crosby scoring one as well as assisting twice. Jake Wentzel scored one and assisted once, and Patrick Hornquist scored one and assisted also. Casey DeSmith in net really solidified the position in Matt Murray's absence, as he saved 18 of 19 shots, which is 94% of the shots on goal. Then in the next match, the Penguins were unlucky against the Bruins when they lost in overtime 2-1. That adds another loss to the overtime loss column. Next up, they had the Blue Jackets, who they absolutely destroyed 4-2. Jake Wentzel scored 3 goals. He's really heating up at the moment. Chris Letang assisted on all 3 of those, and Tanner Pearson got another goal. In the final game since the recording of the podcast, the Pens travelled to Winnipeg to take on the Jets and found themselves behind from the very start. Every single goal, went 1-0 Jets, 1-1, 2-1 Jets, 2-2, 3-2 Jets, 3-3. But nevertheless, after coming back, Zach Aston Reese scored the winner in a hugely impressive win, and it showed that the Penguins have everything it takes to be able to battle back. The other goal scorers on the night were Derek Grant, Sidney Crosby and Riley Shanahan. The win now elevates the Penguins to 6th with a 10-8-5 record, and they also have a game in hand of the Washington Capitals. In the coming week, they face the Avalanche in a double header, as well as the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers game will be an easy win in my opinion. The Flyers really haven't been great all season. They can't seem to turn the puck into the net unless it doesn't really matter. I actually, as I said, I was in Philadelphia last month. I went to 4 games, and they only won 1 of those, which was in overtime, and it went to penalties. I will say, however, Wayne Simmons is a god, so be aware. Regardless, keep an eye out for those games coming soon. Now, that is all for this week's episode. I do hope you've enjoyed it just as much as you did the first one. Again, thank you guys for watching last episode. If you did, please leave a like on the YouTube channel and subscribe if you haven't already. Alternatively, you can also listen to the podcast at steelernationuk.co.uk, as well as following the show on both social medias as in Twitter and Facebook by typing at the Pitt Pod, all one word. But have an awesome weekend. The things you've got to look out for regarding Pittsburgh this weekend are, of course, this Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Los Angeles Chargers, as well as the conference championship game with the Pittsburgh Panthers and the Clemson Tigers, who are ranked number 2. It'll be the biggest upset in college football history, arguably, if they do win against the 12-0 Clemson Tigers. And finally, you've got the 3-game series that the Penguins have got coming up. So have a great weekend, and I will see you guys next Thursday for another show. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like. See y'all later.